Hola, Skylar.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the special school board meeting for Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025 for the Des Moines Public Schools to order. Ms. Rios, could you please take the roll?
Yes. Ms. Alonso?
Here.
Ms. Campos? Mr. Dix?
Here.
Ms. Knox?
Here.
Ms. Martorano?
Here.
Dr. Mayberry Mays?
Here.
Ms. Norris?
Here.
We have quorum.
The first item of
Ms.
business
Campos
is approval
is
of the
on.
agenda. May I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda?
Martorano, so moved.
Alonso, second.
Campos, second.
Any discussion or anybody have any questions? Ms. Rios, could you take the vote?
Ms. Alonso?
Yes.
Ms. Campos?
Yes.
Mr. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Knox?
Yes.
Ms. Martorano?
Yes.
Dr. Mayberry Mays?
Yes.
Ms. Norris?
Here. Yes. Sorry.
The vote is approved, 7-0.
Okay, we'll get into the agenda by beginning with our first action item. This item is B1, non-bargained increases for FY26. Superintendent Roberts, would you please introduce the matter?
Certainly. Thank you, Board Member Dix. I recommend the board approve the 2025-26 compensation for the listed employee groups, administrators, paraprofessionals, specialists, and childcare.
Martorano, so moved.
Alonso, second.
Any discussion? Anybody have any questions? Okay, Ms. Rios, can we please take the vote?
Ms. Alonso?
Yes.
Ms. Campos?
Yes.
Mr. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Knox?
Yes.
Ms. Martorano?
Yes.
Dr. Mayberry Mays?
Yes.
Ms. Norris?
Yes.
The vote is approved, 7-0.
Next, we have two public hearings. The first is C1, public hearing, FY 2026 proposed budget, adoption, and certification. The public hearing will come to order. Is there anyone wishing to speak to this item?
This plane is arriving a little late, so we
Seeing no
won't
one
board
here
right
to
on time.
speak, I'll close the public hearing. Superintendent Roberts, would you please introduce the matter?
We can't hear you,
You're
Dr.
muted,
Roberts.
Dr.
Can you unmute?
Roberts.
Certainly, Board Member Dix. I recommend the board adopt and certify the proposed budget for fiscal year 2026 following the public hearing.
Can I have a motion and a second for this item?
Motion by Campos.
Second.
Is there any discussion or does anyone have any questions about this item?
Are we on,
Yes.
are we on the, yeah, are we on the amendment? Or the budget?
The budget.
Are we receiving a presentation or is that going to come afterwards?
I guess this would be the place to do a presentation.
I can do the presentation.
I just wasn't sure, Shashank, because I saw that you had slides if we were expecting a presentation.
So the presentation is fairly simple and I can go through it, Jackie. It should not take too much time. Let me just start. So what we plan to cover today is the basic thing which we cannot exceed the spending authority limit, which is the annual budget cannot be greater than that. Budget must be balanced and the property tax rate must be set. The one on the left-hand side is the proposed budget for certification. And just to clarify, this is all funds, not just general fund. That is what we send to the DE for certification. On the right-hand side is the increased details, which we have not shared in the past, but based on the board request, we are providing it over here. And this will
I'm not
also
sure
be
we can see. We see one main slide.
Only the opening slide.
okay. Okay.
So let's.
Okay.
There.
Tell me if you can see the change in slides now. Perfect. Thanks, Jackie. Sorry, my bad. So this is the column on the left that I was saying, which is all funds. And on the right is what we published in the newspaper and we sent to DE, which has got all the level of details over there. A lot of numbers, which is why we have historically shared only the left-hand side to the board. This is again the same continuation of the previous slide, the details. All of this which goes on over here. Basically, what I would highlight over here is the total revenue and all other sources is $633 million. The beginning balance was 270, so total resources is 904. And the total expenditures and other uses is $673 million with the ending balance of $231 million. So basically the resources and the requirements need to balance, which is what we have done. The other thing is property tax rate. The slide on the right shows where we were for the last 10 years. And as you can see, we were as high as 18.6 in FY 2021, but the proposed rate is 14.68. And this is what was submitted to the DE, Department of Management, and the Polk County, which has the notice of which has been sent to all the residents. So the rate from last year to this year is exactly the same. That is all that I had on the budget.
Any
Board
discussion or
members,
questions?
I just wanted to share that I just had a quick conversation with Dr. Roberts, and assuming that there's consensus from 4 other board members, that the first meeting in June, we come back to this budget, even though we're being time bound to approve this budget by the end of this month. I am not sure that we've all sufficiently covered the alignment of the budget to the goals and guardrails as we discussed, including some of the conversations we had about resource allocation, and also would be an opportunity for us to receive the feedback that we received from the public, which I don't believe we've been privy to at this point. And so assuming there are 4 board members who are comfortable with that, I'm recommending that we would approve the budget tonight to stay in compliance with the state, but then have a discussion at the first board meeting in June to just make sure that we are all comfortable with the resource alignment, to make sure that resources are allocated to the priorities in the strategic plan.
Other comments or discussion?
Is that something that we need to vote on?
I don't think so. I think it's just an intention to have a work session coming up.
And assuming there's consensus of the board, to do that.
So I think that's what we're looking for here, is any discussion that there is consensus of a majority of the board.
So we need to indicate whether or not we're in agreement with that. I would like that.
This is
So we're
Jenna.
not taking
I am in support of that.
We're not taking a formal vote on that, but just that being the intention that in June we would revisit the budget to make sure it's in alignment with the strategic the goals.
I think as part of our discussion tonight, yes, that is getting a sense of the board's desire to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Jenna, did you have a comment? I didn't hear that.
It was just expressing my support for that strategy.
Board Member Dix, a point of order, if I may. Madam Chair, certainly the board and I are aligned in terms of the necessity for us to have a deeper conversation around alignment, and not only as it pertains to our goals and guardrails, but also whether or not we, as a part of the vision and that's inserted in the strategic plan, are being thoughtful about budget allocation and reallocation. So thank you for bringing that into the space.
Yeah, I guess I would just comment that, I think for me, and I think not just for me, but for a lot of the board, there is a desire to understand more of what we're talking about and to be helpful in making sure that those resources are aligned. And so for me, I'm feeling very much like where I was last year at this time. And moving forward, I think there's just and I think just because of the circumstances of the world right now, there is more of an urgency to understand what our options are and to be helpful in that discussion. So I would be very supportive of a longer and deeper discussion, and then a longer runway next year for discussing how resources line up with priorities. Any other comments, discussion?
I think this is just a
Okay,
comment
hearing
for the
none,
board to consider.
We have a motion and a second, right? So board members, can we take a vote?
Yeah.
Jackie
Ms.
was
Alonso?
trying to share some
Mr. Dix?
comments, I think.
No,
Jackie-
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Jackie was trying
just-
to share comments.
Go ahead.
Just real quickly, I think this is a good conversation for all of us as a board and superintendent and CFO, maybe to think about whether it's a guardrail or what we want to put in place because of the tumultuous nature of the year ahead, how we have more regular conversations about the budget, whether that's quarterly or monthly. I would defer to Dr. Roberts and Shashank, but it just might make sense for us to think about a more strategic focus on the budget on a regular basis, given some of the unknowns.
Agreed.
Okay, I'll proceed with the vote. Ms. Alonso?
Yes.
Ms. Campos?
Yes.
Mr. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Knox?
Yes.
Ms. Martirano?
Yes.
Dr. Mayberry Mays?
Yes.
Ms. Norris?
Yes.
The vote is approved, 7-0.
Next item on the agenda is C2, public hearing FY 2025 budget amendment. The public hearing will come to order. Is there anyone wishing to speak to this item? Any speakers on the list? All right, hearing no one, I want to close the public hearing. Superintendent Roberts, would you please introduce the matter?
Absolutely, Board Member Dix. I recommend the board approve the budget amendment for fiscal year 2025 as presented following the public hearing.
Could I have a
Martirano,
motion and a
so
second
moved.
to approve this item?
Alonso, so moved.
Second?
All right, with a motion and a second, is there any discussion on the amendment? Any questions for Dr. Roberts and the team about the amendment?
Shashank, maybe just a comment and a question and a congratulations or some combination of that. Anything you want to outline as being significant as you think about your budgeting process and the changes that you've made that you want to highlight from FY25?
Sorry. Not used to the board meeting of muting and unmuting, my bad, sorry. So Jackie, what we have done is, this is the process which the state requires for us to be in compliance. And we historically every year come to the board with amendments based on how the year has progressed. And we get a negative comment even if we are $1 over the budget. So we always build a little bit of a safety margin versus coming back to the board as well. So we do have some safety margins over here, but basically to highlight the $2 million in instruction, which we are putting in the amendment, is more related to the OE, which is the open enrollment out, which happens. There used to be a defined date, and now we can do open enrollment at any time of the year. So that is what is causing it over there. In the total support services that we have, a $10 million increase. We have hired some safety and security officers. We have the bilingual people we have hired over there. And we have the community school coordinators, which we, at that point in time in the budget, the discussion was whether we want to continue with them or not. Since they're continuing, that cost is built over here. And then a safety margin, which we have built over here. And in non-instructional is basically related to the SAVE and PEPL projects as they're rolling in. And again, we have built a safety margin over there because we don't know if the projects may close prior to June 30th or they may extend. So instead of coming to the board again, we build a safety margin here as well. So I think that those are some of the key things I would mention.
Board members, other questions or discussion? All right, hearing none. Ms. Rios, can we take the vote?
Yes. Ms. Alonso?
Yes.
Ms. Campos?
Yes.
Mr. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Knox?
Yes.
Ms. Martorano?
Yes.
Dr. Mayberry Mace?
Yes.
Ms. Norris?
Yes.
The vote is approved 7-0.
All right, that's all of our business on our agenda. We'll call this meeting adjourned at 5:47. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Great to see everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.